A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Just Africa. We are reaching you live from our studios in the commercial city of Lagos. I am Oyinpriye Kurumale. Today, we explore the pulse of the continent's transformation through the lens of politics, business, economy, innovation, and diplomacy. We turn our spotlight to a pressing and promising topic, made in Africa. Boosting intra-continental trade through local manufacturing as African nations strive for economic sovereignty and sustainable development. The dream of industrialization from within is, like gaining serious momentum. But what will it truly take to grow our factories, stitch together the value chains, and ensure that goods proudly stamped made in Africa, made in Nigeria, made in Ghana, made in Tanzania, made in Kenya, made in other African countries, Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, are consumed by Africans and hopefully the Europeans as well. And we will celebrate across the African continent. That is our goal. That will be the nucleus of our conversation this afternoon rather. That actually depends on where you're watching us from. Welcome once again to the program in Just Africa. The Knight himself.
How are you doing, Priya?
I'm okay.
I like this topic because whether we like it or not, this issue of made in Africa cannot be overflowed. It's towards a better economic, policy. It's towards a better economic for Nigerians, for Africa. It is to advance in intra-African trade. It is to be able to even compete with the EU.
Yes.
We always look at the European EU. I mean, look at what's going on with EU and Trump right now. I mean, when would Africa be able to? And we have resources. People always say Africa is the new bride. Everybody's coming to Africa. Everybody's trying to woo the new bride. Everybody's trying to bring some. When you want to woo a bride, you bring gift that, necessarily she would like. So that's how people are looking at Africa. But from our own standpoint, what do we really stand to gain or stand to offer? Now, I was looking at a couple of made in Africa stuffs. I mean, in tech, we have Flutterwave. We have that in automobile. We have the Innocence. We have the RB and all that. We have quite a handful. If you look at different sectors, we have about maybe 4 to 5 that are made in Africa. But we can do more than this. Yes. We can actually do more than this. Because why are we always talking about made in Africa? Because it will create jobs, number one. It will drive the GDP, the gross domestic product of any economy. It will also provide affordable products and services for people, so that, because when you import, tax is going to be there. Import duties are going to, a lot of things are going to come in, which no businessman would want to take a loss for. So it will reflect in the end consumer. Yes, we're exporting oil, we're exporting this, but at what cost? What are we bringing back? We're exporting crude and bringing back fuel. I mean, yes, the new 30% manufacturing, the new 30% processing is good, it's laudable, but I think we should take it to 100%.
To 100%?
Yes.
Well, that's a very laudable aspiration and a very towering aspiration at that, and hopefully we will get there.
Definitely.
Yes. So, made in Africa, boosting intra-continental trade through local manufacturing refers to the effort by African countries to shift away from raw material export dependency and toward industrial production within the continent of Africa, with a goal to encourage Africans to trade more with each other using African-made products. We'll go on a break. We have a prominent guest who will be joining us on the program after the break. You don't want to go anywhere. We'll be back in a moment to stay with us. Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the program. Joining us on the program today is Adetola Freeman Ogunkule. He's a seasoned financial markets specialist with over 12 years of experience in the forex, stocks, and cryptocurrency trading. As the Chief Executive Officer of ZFX or SFX Technologies, he has built a reputation for simplifying complex trading concepts and empowering traders to succeed in volatile markets. Now, over the past 6 years, Adetola has trained and mentored hundreds of profitable students across Africa, Europe, and Asia, earning recognition as a trusted educator in the financial trading space. His expertise lies in navigating high volatility assets with a strategic focus on risk management and sustainable growth. Adetola Freeman Ogunkule, you are welcome to the program. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Onye, for that rousing welcome. I'm really honored to be here.
Very, many thanks to you too. Now, please, whenever it is seen by our Western friends that we bandy around so many things at a point in time, and we have been the former chairman, man at the helm of affairs of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, has said that imagine Africans trading with each other. 1.4 billion people in the continent of Africa. Imagine us trading together. That the benefit is enormous, is inexhaustible. Did you share that idea or that perspective?
Well, of course, it's something that if we're able to achieve it, I believe it's going to be to the benefit of the entire continent. However, as you also know, there are several bottlenecks that constitute a challenge to the realization of such a lofty ambition. But is it possible? I believe so. And I believe that's why we're having this conversation, so that we can be able to put it out there that these things are possible, they are achievable, and then we can promote conversations in that regard that can help us accomplish this vision.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adetola Freeman Ogunkule. I like that name, Freeman. It's a very nice name. So, can you take us through what are the direct economic benefits of producing locally, and how would it drive the economy?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Let me start by saying the benefits are not as much for the continent per se as it is for individuals. And I'm going to start by making reference to what we call human resource, manpower. Unfortunately, Nigeria has a large population. I'm using Nigeria as a case study now, as a large population of able-bodied young people who either lack the skills to be employable or the enabling environment to find, gainful employment, or even an environment where they can be able to survive in the harsh economic situation that we have globally. So I think, first of all, it's going to be individual, improvements, all right, in the quality of life, in the standard of our education, and the quality of the kind of people we have in our society. All right, there'll be reduced crime rate, all right, because people are living more meaningful lives. And of course, nobody wants to die because life is meaningful. Okay, so that's the first one. Then number two is the fact that it helps foster, international transportation or international logistics. Because based on that, I can literally travel from here to South Africa without necessarily having to wait several days or weeks before I get to approve my visa and things like that. So that's also going to help business owners and businessmen, entrepreneurs to be able to move around the continent a lot easier, because they don't have that, that bottleneck of waiting for stamps on their visas before they can, carry out trade or meet up with business partners across the country. Okay, so I think the third one I want to talk about is the fact that it's going to help us build resilience, because we understand that there's a lot of instability in the global economy at the moment. Talking about the tariff wars, talking about, even insecurity in certain areas. We're talking about, nuclear threats from one continent to another, talking about the Western nations and Asia at the moment. So when we talk about things like this, we are favored in a continent like Africa to have minimal, experiences of this kind of crisis. And I think that if we're able to implement intra-African trade, it will help insulate us from the instabilities that come with, there's rumors of war, there's, social crisis, there's oil shortage in one country or the other. That would help insulate Africa as a region so that the fluctuations in the international market does not necessarily lead to a devaluation in our capacity or in our financial, status. So I think I'll just end with those three at the moment.
Yes, in your first submission, you said Nigerians or youth, they lack the adequate skills needed. Is it across all sectors? Are you talking about agriculture, which little to no skills is needed? Are you talking about business, entrepreneurs, healthcare? Can you please expatiate this further?
Okay, thank you for highlighting that. I'm going to say that there are two major industries that I have seen this. It cuts across several industries, definitely. Of course, we've seen improvements in the tech industry. We're seeing a lot of youths that are more enterprising in that regard. But you mentioned agriculture. And the truth is, we want to ask, how many percentage of young people do you personally know who are interested in, graduating from university to start a farm? Okay, by God's grace, I own a farm. I run a farm in a local environment around Nemi. But I have seen the reluctance in youths to participate in such ventures, because unfortunately, we have an economy of youths who are interested in fast money nowadays, because they've seen their friends who are programmers bag $3,000 a month, and they are like, I can do that too, but I don't want to do it through the long waiting process. So that's the first one, agriculture. And then the second one is that there is very little focus in the unskilled sector of our economy, or let me say the semi-skilled sector of our economy. All right. You can also testify to this. Many universities turn out tens of thousands of graduates every year. Unfortunately, aside this number, very few of them actually understand why they went to school. Okay, because all they have to show for it is the certificate. No employable skills or no globally relevant skills are imbibed, because we know what they call la crème la peau. It's literally the way many people survive the campus system. So I believe that we need to begin to have more focus on technical skills. All right, we need to have young people who are interested in skills that are not necessarily demeaning, but they require a lot more physical labor. All right, we should see more of workshops. We should see more of engineering centers. We should see more of this involvement from the youth, and I think those are majorly the things I would talk about for now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Freeman Ogunkunle. Now, when people talk about made in Africa, for me, what I see is industrialization. Industrialization is actually the instrument through which the first world countries, the West, built their economy. And any economy, or if Africans are really going to be true to their words, without industrialization, they are heading nowhere. And if we talk about industrialized countries on the continent of Africa, the most industrialized country is South Africa. Morocco is there. Tunisia is there. Eswatini is there. Nigeria is not there, even though Nigeria is seen as an industrialized country with the biggest market, the biggest population. It's not there. One of the bane of this problem is power, energy. South Africa with more than 35,000 megawatts. Nigeria, less than 10,000, or at least 10,000. So don't you think we are putting the horse before the cart, or putting the cart before the horse? Don't you think we have not taken care of the primary thing that will move us into made in Africa product, and we are trying to go ahead of ourselves? What's your perspective?
I'm sorry for laughing. It's just that you hit the nail where it's pinning. Personally, as an entrepreneur in Nigeria, I have an office that runs on solar energy 24/7 because I cannot rely on government power. So I know what it feels like. There was a time where we were running on fuel, diesel, and we had to run for at least 10 hours a day. When you have a generator that consumes about 15 liters per hour, and you know what the cost is for 3 hours, rather 15 liters, and then you know what the cost of diesel is at this point in time. So there are a lot of unsustainable practices in the Nigerian environment that we need to really address. For example, Ogun State has one of the most is one of the states with a lot of our industries. All right, several companies are based in Ogun State. But if you take a critical look at the road network in Ogun State, all right, and Ogun State, of course, because it's closer to Lagos, which is the location for the international ports. But when we check the road networks in the state itself, you find out how difficult it is to even transport the raw materials to the companies and then the finished products from the companies to the port. Okay, and this is, it's also remarkable that there's the rail, the innovations regarding rail. But I think that innovation has to have some bit of focus on commercial transportation or logistics as well. All right, we need to have, carrier rails, all right, that are not just conveying people, but also doing a lot in conveying raw materials and finished products as well. So that's number one. Road network is poor. Number two, power is completely a disappointment. And I'm saying this as emotionally as possible because I am pained. All right. So that's the second one. And I think the third thing is the fact that based on the fact that, our inflation is quite high, interest rates are rising, there is little margin for business owners and entrepreneurs to actually take risks. We understand that debts are good, all right, for building businesses, for innovation, for, setting up and, leveraging. There are vehicles that you can leverage for expansion and, to step up. But how do I cope when I am taking a loan at 27, 28% interest per annum? It means that I need to create a system that helps me shoot for at least 50% interest in a year. So this does not leave a lot of margin for error. And that's why it's scary for business owners and entrepreneurs to actually utilize the vehicles of loans, all right, to be able to expand their businesses. So I think those three will do for now. There are a lot more on my table, but I don't want to bore the audience, but these three are the top of the list for me.
All right. Okay. So thank you very much. Now, I want to take you back to power because you actually, specifically spoke briefly about your experience. And let's consider manufacturing. And since you've been in the line of business, you're running your business for 10 hours a day and you're actually going to depend on an alternative power source. So if you make comparison, when you used to depend on the power from the government and from the renewable energy, which one is more cost effective if you can make some form of calculations? And if industries were to do that, what do you think their overhead costs will be eaten and how would that affect production? And finally, purchasing power of the man at the ebb of society in buying those products.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Personally, I consider myself to be fortunate in the sense that the business model that I operate with allows me to be able to take certain kind of measure of risk. So projecting costs now, if we had stayed with the alternative power of using the generators, I believe that what we would have spent in about 10 years would have been more than times 4, times 5 of what it cost us to set up the solar setup that we use currently. It's a 12 kilowatt hour system, about 24 panels, but at least it powers the entire office for 24 hours. Although sometimes we have to do power shedding, turn off some ACs and all of that, but it works. All right, the system works. But when you compare it to when we had to run on gen and you're spending 60, 70,000 naira a day, comparatively, I think I'm better off. Of course, we have to leverage on certain loan vehicles or alternative funding vehicles to be able to pull out the initial capital at once. But I think in the long run, it's worth it because in 3-4 years, we would have made enough profit margin to literally pay off everything that it cost. So for me, it was worth it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Adetola Freeman Ayokunle. So I would like to ask you, if you look at the market, the African market, the major drivers of made in Africa product is consumer preference. So in your opinion, are you seeing a shift in consumer preference towards made in Africa products, and what can be done to make that shift?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. I think the major thing that influences consumer sentiment is trust. It's the reason why you would hear there's a common parlance, oh, that product is a German vehicle, it's a German product, which means that when it comes to automobiles now, they associate power with German products. They associate longevity with certain brands, like the ones that we see on the road all the time. I don't want to mention specific names, so it all boils down to trust. And trust is something that has to be built. It has to be earned, all right? So say, for example, we've seen several examples of what I ordered, what I got, even for locally sourced products, all right? I see a picture on a vendor's page on Instagram. I make an order for it, and then what they are delivering to me does not even look anything close to what I ordered, all right? Or I'm getting an attire for a festive or for an event, and then what the vendor is delivering to me is completely off the mark, all right? So we need to up our standards. We need to improve on our awareness of integrity, of product integrity, okay? So that based on the improvement in the quality of products and services that we offer, it becomes easier for other people to realize that we actually have the value to give, okay? For example, in the tech space, a lot of foreign countries prefer to hire African, precisely Nigerians. Why? Because they know that Nigerians are resilient, they are hardworking, and they would go the extra mile for the dollar, all right? And if we can build that integrity over the years of, very deep commitment to, that space, I believe we can cut across other spaces and industries by just building integrity, so to say.
All right, I'm glad you mentioned trust, because I want to take you back to the 80s and the 90s when we had shoe giants like Bata. I'm sure you remember. Yes, it was not owned by a Nigerian, but yes, we had it in Nigeria. And a lot of people, I remember going back to school, it was Bata or nothing. I also remember manufacturing giants like Nasco, who had different kinds of cereals, biscuits, and all that. But what happened? Because those were made in Nigeria. People trusted those brands and they patronized it. It was on a large scale. Nasco was a major. So what do you think happened over time?
Okay, that's an interesting question. And the answer might tilt a little bit towards politics. It is the role of the government to create, conducive environment for businesses to thrive. So when we begin to have certain policies that hamper the goodwill of a business or an entrepreneur to actually, make marginal profits while preferring remarkable value, it means that the business is faced with two options. Is either we call it quits or we pass on the burdens to the end, the end line consumers, which of course is why we've seen increase in prices of different goods and services, because I cannot travel to go and buy cassava from Ogbomoso, from Abete, and then I'm bringing it down to a city like Ibadan, and then I'm not factoring in what it costs, what logistics cost me, and including all of the black people that I had to settle on the road. I'm sure you understand what I mean by black people. I'm not talking about skin color. I'm talking about a different context, and all the settlements that I had to settle along the road. So all of these things are factored into my final pricing, even though initially I wanted to have a fair price at the end of the day in the market. So all of these things, I believe, are part of the reasons why we're not seeing more audacious people step into the markets, because it makes a lot of people who are afraid to fail cannot bear the risk of even stepping into the scene because it looks too muddy for them to survive. And trust me, business in Nigeria is war because you have competitors who are willing to go diabolical to get you out of the space. A lot of weird things happen in the Nigerian market, So I believe that it all started with eroding policies. All right, when policies began to make the business space too stringent for small businesses and medium enterprises to survive, it just ended up, making a lot of business owners decide on whether it was worth it in the end, and some of them had to just step out. We saw Unilever, we saw. I don't know when last you were in. There used to be a popular mall brand, a popular supermarket brand. I don't know when last you went there, but if you go there today, I can assure you will see that there's been a shift. It's no longer as heavily patronized as it used to be. So business owners are making the wise decision of, is it really worth it? And I think that's where our problems originated from.
Thank you, Mr. Detola Freeman Ogunkule. We are not done with you yet. When we come back from the break, we will be looking specifically at products. Now, products within the shores of Africa, within the shores of Africa, outside Nigeria, in Tanzania, in Ghana, in Kenya, in Cote d'Ivoire, and every other African countries. We look at the standards of those products. If it can be, we can ship them into Nigeria, trade among ourselves, specifically on this product, and how we can equally use them through the vehicle of the AfCFTA. Now, do stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
My name is Shino Ogbadegeshin. I'm the CEO of Gozi Micro Insurance. Continue to watch SouqNews.
Adenike Adeyemi, Executive Director of Faith Foundation. Keep watching SouqNews.
My name is Shepherd Michael Adewale Onofuye. I enjoy you all to always watch SouqNews TV.
Hey everyone, Majuli Obaje here representing Gigi. Keep watching SouqNews, okay? Stay updated with SouqNews.
My name is Aton Keme. I am the head of MSME banking. Please keep watching SouqNews and stay glued to SouqNews.
I recommend that more and more people should watch SouqNews News because they deal with business news.
Hi, my name is Amaka Wokolo. I am the director of the Faith Institute at Faith Foundation. Keep watching SouqNews.
Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade and later, under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo Masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota Market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Markets, Souk Enlightenment.
Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the program. We've been talking about Made in Africa and some of all the indices, all the challenges, and what we need to put in place for the African market to be at the peak and for 1.4 billion people to trade amongst themselves. The benefits are completely out of the world. We have in our conversation this afternoon Mr. Adetola Freeman of Gunkule. He's been doing excellently well on the program. We still have him online. Thanks for joining us once again on the program, Mr. Ogunkunle.
That's a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Very good. Now, before the break, I was talking about products. In Nigeria, yes, we make cars. We have Nord, we have Innocent. South Africa too, because of their level of industrialization, we can start looking at their cars. But whilst that the technology and the capital intensive way, the requirement is quite high. Let's come down a little bit to consumption goods made for people at the head of society. So we can talk about cocoa. We used to have cocoa in Nigeria. Ghana has that too. Cote d'Ivoire equally has that too. And the reason why they are doing effectively well and even to the extent of exporting out of their country is because they've taken advantage of the fact that they own the raw materials. They just develop manufacturing in place to harness the production and work around it. So what are some of the products that you think African countries, you can mention name and sometimes probably mention the product that you think we can harness our capacity to produce, and through the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, we can use that to penetrate within the 54 countries in the continent of Africa to proliferate and sell our goods?
Okay, thank you once again. I'm going to mention a particular brand that I'm sure that you are familiar with. We grew up knowing them as, there was this very interesting song they had that time, Bako Super Sack, Bako Super Sack. We used to know them as, a reliable brand for sacks. But right now, I believe the brand is diversifying into a lot of leather products. They have shoes, they have bags, and I've seen some of their products firsthand, and I think they look really, really beautiful. So I think that one of the products that we can start leveraging on is going to be leather. All right, we need to do a lot more with regards to leather. And I'm not saying that this is going to mean that we stop consuming more. No, I'm simply saying that that industry needs a lot more visibility. There needs to be a lot more noise making in that regard. Because why would I, as an African, prefer to travel to Dubai to buy a leather product and I'm spending $35,000 to buy a bag simply because of the name on the bag? These are leathers that are, some of them are sourced locally in northern Nigeria. Okay, so it means that the reason why people prefer to go to Dubai to make such purchases is because they are associating our locally made leather or our locally produced leather with a foreign country simply because of the name of the brand. So I believe that one of the things that we need to start looking into is leather, like I said. But in all of the industries that I'm going to mention, or in all of the products I'm going to be mentioning, there is need for a lot more awareness, a lot more publicity. For example, you mentioned Nord and Innocent. I know we're talking about consumer products, but I just want to just divert briefly. You mentioned Nord and Innocent. But how many politicians drive these cars? How many wealthy people in our communities drive these cars? As long as I am still seeing Prado on the road, that still becomes a communication to even a young a young adult who is aspiring towards wealth. His idea of affluence will be, oh, one day I'm going to have so much money I will drive a Prado. All right. Not one day I'm going to be so rich I'm going to buy an Innocent. So that bias, that sentiment is there because our local brands also need to do a lot by way of awareness, by way of visibility. So coming back to consumer products, I've mentioned leather. Another thing we'll have to do, like you said, cocoa. We still heavily do cocoa in Africa. I've had reason to speak with some investors in that industry, and to be very honest, a lot of them just prefer to harvest, just do a little bit of processing and then export. They are not interested in, the end of the retail chain of, them finally having consumer products that they're putting out. Why? Because there are so many bottlenecks. There are logistic bottlenecks. There are human resource bottlenecks. There are bottlenecks with regards to the machinery, and then the maintenance of this machinery is also something to talk about. Because, like I said, in an environment where majority of the people are not exactly skilled, all right, the ability to sustain or maintain the machinery is going to be difficult. And that's why you see, it's unfortunate to say, but many industries or many companies, manufacturing companies, prefer to have, diasporans supervising their manufacturing chain or their machinery. They prefer to have Lebanese, Palestinians, or even Indians supervise some of their, processes, which goes to speak to the fact that there is maybe insufficient trust in, the home base. So another product I'd like to talk about is palm oil. All right, we need to do a lot more with regards to palm oil. All right, it's the backbone of many industries abroad. Cosmetics, talking, so many things. Palm oil is a huge product, and it's unfortunate that those who are in the industry also have a lot of challenges that they are facing right now due to the fluctuation in the exchange rate, due to customs bottlenecks when it comes to getting products approved for export and all of that. Then another one I'm going to mention that is not very popular is charcoal. This particular product is something that for the past 2 years I've personally been researching on because I have interest in going into that industry in a big way. But I'm not going to be leaking all of my juice on the show this morning because I know that some people listening might end up being my competitors, and I will not give them the weapons with which to amputate me. Charcoal is a big deal in the cosmetics industry, but it's unfortunate that it is also the only affordable, cooking product for so many homes. In an environment where we have over 130 million people out of 200 million plus living below the poverty line, it means that a lot more people are adopting alternative systems for their cooking as against using, cooking gas. So we have a lot more people cooking with charcoal, a lot more people cooking with firewood and stuff like that. But if we have growing interest in that field, all right, and the production of charcoal is more emphasized if it's industrialized, I believe it's a product that we can also make some really good foreign exchange from as a continent, basically. So I'll just leave with those four.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Freeman. I would like us to look at intra-African trade and trade barriers. Now, if you had to prioritize one investment infrastructure that will bring about immediate impact on intra-African trade, which would it be and why?
Without a doubt, it would be rail. That would be my investment. It would be rail networks. We need to improve rail networks. That's the reason why China keeps investing in hyperspeed trains, which means that you can travel from one end of the nation to the other, in literal minutes. But if it's taking me 13 hours by rail to go from Kaduna to Lagos, it means that already constitutes a bottleneck, not to talk of if I'm having to transport goods from maybe Kaduna to South Africa, or maybe Lagos to, maybe Benin Republic, which is even shorter. But it could be better if there were rail networks, that connect, countries, across board. Rail, because now the cost of maintaining a rail line is not as much as the cost of maintaining, other methods like the air travel, the air cargo system, which is quite expensive because aviation fuel is, is quite costly. We're also talking about the fact that the kind of cargo that you can haul by rail is nothing compared to what it would take you, to transport by air and the likes. All right, because you can have a cargo train that has 30 or more coaches, and that means it can carry several tons of goods across the continent. All right, so that would be my investment, rail, no doubt about it. Why? Because power is something that there are still alternatives to it, okay? But rail, I don't think that the alternatives we have to rail are as sustainable or as practical as they could be. I know one of the alternatives is the road system that we currently use, and it's why you see, tanker trucks having to take up, products from Lagos to go and dispense in, the core knot, and sometimes it takes them 3-4 days to arrive. All right, and along with it comes the risk, the risk of, an accident to fellow road users and all of that. But if we're able to improve on our rail networks, I believe that, it's going to boost a lot more by way of our intra-African trade. So that would be my investment, without a doubt.
Right. Thank you so much, Adetola Freeman Ogunkunle. I would have loved to continue having this conversation with you, but our time is up, and I do hope that you had a good time with us today, and hopefully you are going to come when next we extend the invitation to you.
Thank you so much, Onyipre. Thank you, Olumide, for having me. It's been a fantastic moment with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. You have yourself a splendid day ahead.
You too.
So, lots of things we need to do. I know, so he said it. Having an alternative power source, the energy renewable, and the running generator, the overhead cost, 70,000 naira daily. Daily. Now, that's for an SME, that's like an average SME that is running business and trying to survive. 70,000 naira for 5 times in a week. If he needs to do that, that's 350,000 naira for 4 weeks. That's over $1 million naira. So if you're going to be doing just $1 million naira for
1.4
for just getting power, for 1.4, 1.5 million naira for just power alone.
How much is?
What about other raw materials that you need to source, servicing of your machinery to prepare for production? And when you talk about manufacturing, what about personnel?
Other logistics.
What about other logistics? What about personnel? And it's really killing. And this is the reason why when electric power is not given priority, or when we talk about industrialization and our ability to produce as Africans, be it Nigeria and many other African countries, you see it looks as if we have not really given clean thought to the world process. South Africa, the most industrialized economy in Africa. Morocco is there, Tunisia is there. That's good, but Nigeria, if we're going to give our best, Kenya, if we're going to give our best, at least we should not do anything less than 40,000 megawatts. At least 40,000. It sounds like a very tall aspiration.
Aspiration from 5,000, 6,000 megawatts
to 40,000. But if South African can do it with just how many million people? 45, 60 million people. Let's even assume they have 60 million, 65 million people. If they can do it, why can't we do it?
Well, we can do it, but the problem is not even generation, it's distribution. So until we...
How are they distributing their power?
We have distribution, we have debt. Discos have huge debts on their head that they are begging the federal government, they are doing this, and there's the issue of reducing tariffs, which they are still fighting. I mean, Enugu is belling the cat in that. So it's a whole lot to tackle, and yes, for every economy to thrive, you need to take care of power, whether you like it or not. You need to take care of power because that is one of the factors any investor would consider coming down to Nigeria. They will factor in power. And like you said, we just did a running course for maybe a pass my neighbor kind of generator, not the diesel plant. Do you understand? This is just a one-man business. It's not a big multinational business where we have you might probably have 3 different plants powering your company. It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot. And I like the fact that you talked about interconnectivity through the rail. I think that was one of the things that the late Muhammadu Buhari was trying to do from Nigeria to Niger. It would actually, because I've always wondered why Nigeria or Africa is not even trading amongst themselves. There's so much potential. I mean, look at what Adesina said. There's a whole lot of potential before we can even think of exporting outside Africa. Let's even trade amongst ourselves.
And we don't need $1 to do that.
We don't need $1 to do that. It's quite interesting.
Yes, it's quite interesting. But the show is not done yet. We'll go on a break. And by the time we come back for part 2 of the program, you don't want to miss it. We have a prominent guest who will be standing by to take us through the part B of the conversation. It's Just Africa, and we are reaching you live from our studios at SouqNews Television. Don't go anywhere.
Hello Nigeria, hello Africa. Yeah, this is Sound Man. Keep watching Souk News.
My name is Babalola from Excel LED. Keep watching Souk News.
My name is Shepherd Michael Adewale Onofuye. I enjoy you all to always watch Souk News TV.
Hi, I'm Tom Boggaballs, and please keep watching Souk News.
Wale Seriki, SLG Lagos Island East, Souk News. Keep out watching them and keep a lookout for them. They're up and coming, and we're proudly to be affiliated with them.
You alone where they make me go crazy. This your love in the cool of my brain. You're my medicine, I need you all day. Yo, it's Blackface Nigeria, and you're watching Souk News TV. Keep it locked on this dial, don't change it. You know what I say? Blackface Nigeria, love no bad.
Welcome to Femi Walsh Limited, owners of Souk TV Lagos, Our Radio Lagos, Kaswa Radio Kano, and of course Emirates TV Abuja and Dubai. Our niche market for media is business, economy, and development. At Femi Walsh, we promote your company's products and services using our world-class facilities. From Our Radio to Souk TV, what you get is nothing but the best of the very best.
And if you're looking for the premium production firm for your events and corporate coverage, think no further, because we offer you the best of industry standards.
With high-definition cameras ranging from 4K to 8K multicam setups, high-directional microphones, and real-time streaming encoders, we give you a production like none other. And if you're looking to produce podcasts, adverts, and documentaries, our team of experts will ensure that you convey your message clearly and professionally. Femi Walsh, Global Vision, Local Impact.
Cocoa remains a significant cash crop in Nigeria, predominantly produced by small-scale farmers in the country's southwest region. Historically, cocoa served as a major source of foreign earnings until the 1970s, when the discovery of petroleum shifted the focus away from agriculture. Despite various challenges from its introduction in 1807 to the present, efforts by successive governments and the resilience of cocoa farmers have sustained its production. To better optimize productivity and ensure fair prices for farmers and high economic returns for the government, the Cocoa Marketing Board, CMB, was established in 1947. However, the goal was not totally achieved as pricing policy were unfavorable, discouraging farmers from producing export crops, and that eventually led to the boat abolition in 1986. These resulted in reduced yields and lower quality cocoa beans. Meanwhile, the millennium era witnessed a shift in farmers' focus towards more economically viable crops like oil palm due to the high cost and intensive care required for cocoa production. Cocoa production faces several obstacles, including limited access to fertilizers, unfavorable climate conditions, pest infestation, poor infrastructure, and land shortages. Also, herders' attacks on farmers have deterred farmers from expanding their farmlands. According to research, despite challenges, cocoa production has empowered many farmers and more stakeholders in the value chain, improving their living standards, enabling them to provide education for their children, cover medical expenses, and build better homes. Concerning the future of cocoa farming in Nigeria, there are mixed opinions among farmers. Some are hopeful that government's reinvestment in addressing current challenges can revive the sector's past success. Others are pessimistic due to the persistent issues and the trend of farmers shifting to other crops. Regardless, hope remains for the sector. Solutions like improving land-labor relations, infrastructure, and financial support could revitalize cocoa production, reduce out migration, stabilize prices, and enhance value chain development, ultimately securing a brighter future for Nigerian cocoa farming and its stakeholders. Ojai Michael, reporting for SouqNews.
On the 19th of August 2025, Paris will come alive with the prestigious People's Choice Governors Awards taking place at the Gauche Hotel, Paris. The prestigious People's Choice Governors Awards is designed to celebrate governors who have contributed immensely to their states in different countries across the world. If you are a governor who's gone above and beyond to deliver transformative projects in your state and country, then this award is for you. To partake of the Governor's Excellence Awards this year taking place in Paris, all you have to do is send an email to soupnexus.com with the words, "I accept," and we will get right back to you. You can also send a WhatsApp message to the WhatsApp number scrolling on your screen right now. You don't want to miss Paris for anything, and we are looking forward to celebrating you and your achievements this year. So contact SouqNexus to make that happen.
Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the program. Now, let's still talk about made in Africa, made in Ghana, made in Nigeria, made in Tanzania, made in Kenya, made in Burkina Faso. Don't worry about the coup there. Let's talk about the industrialization and the wherewithal, the capacity that African countries need to acquire at the moment so that we can move forward. So when we talk about industrialization, the need for planning is not something that a single African country can do.
Yes.
And all African countries, all 54 African countries, whether you are under a military government or you are under a civilian government, is irrelevant. So we should look at it, okay, look at Europe, the EU, and let's copy their model. Let's copy their model because it is knit together, connected together by rail lines. Yeah.
Do we have rail lines?
So if they are knit together and connect together by rail line, every budgetary year, African Union, the AU, or the economic, probably, yes, African Union, the AU, must mandate every African government to make sure that their allocation to the ministry. There are several ministries of transportation, be it in sea, be it in rail, be it on road infrastructure, get to a specific percentage of the total budget and see to it that whatever budget, whatever allocation is used for it is deployed for that purpose, and we engage in it. Because if not, if we do that consistently every year, every budgetary year, and we do that consistently for 2 decades, 2 decades, 2.5 decades, 25 years, I'm sure African countries, to an extent, even if it's 50%, will be connected together through rail lines or very, very good infrastructure with regards to transportation. Through that means we can ship our goods across borders to each other.
I think one of the major drivers of this is government continuum. I think for now, Lagos State is one of the states that I know that from the era of President Tinubu as a governor till now, they've been following a particular pattern. They have a plan, a blueprint plan, which they have been following. So for AU to mandate countries, we have to look at government continuum. Now we have the ruling party. If the opposition party comes in, will they follow the laid down guidelines?
AU charter. Everybody needs to fall in line. All the countries fall in line whenever it comes. When it came to COVID-19, because all the countries were member states of the United Nations, and the United Nations through the World Health Organization mandated all member countries to follow a protocol with regards to conducting public health, and we fell in line. So why can't we do the same for African Union?
Well, we fell in line, but we the removal, not removal, but the exit of the AES.
Okay. Well, now we're told our next guest is online. We are going to go back to that conversation to continue to intimate you on what African governments and African countries need to do to make it a very, very smooth transition to ease the cost of doing business in the continent among member states. Now, to the core of our part 2 conversation, we have a very prominent guest who's joining us on the program, Gbolahan Olojede. He's a respected economist, financial analyst, and public affairs commentator with a deep understanding of development economics, public finance, and enterprise growth strategy. With over 2 decades of experience advising governments, banks, and development agencies, he is a vocal advocate for policies that drive inclusive economic growth. Gbolahan is known for his data-driven insight on MSME development, employment generation, and public sector reform. His commentary regularly appears on leading business and policy platforms across Africa. He brings a unique blend of economic realism and policy pragmatism to conversations on Africa's industrial future. Gbolahan Olojede, welcome to Just Africa. Many thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're very much welcome. Made in Africa is what we are looking at, Mr. Gbolahan Olojede, and it looks as if it will take 5 decades. It looks as if it will take 10 decades for Africa to get to where the most developed or the first world countries currently exist, the platform where they currently are when it comes to industrialization. Do you share that perspective, or you have a contrary opinion?
Well, how long it would take for us to make major transformation will depend on what kind of effort we put into it. As it were, in the 70s, Africa has about 3% share of global manufacturing. But unfortunately, today, that 3% has even declined. We are now below 2% of global manufacturing. And I won't be surprised if out of this less than 2%, maybe South Africa alone has 1% of the less than 2%. So it's a major crisis in Africa. And I think for many years, Africa had not paid the right level of attention to this problem. And that is why it has festered. We have been presented as a place for raw materials. whether it is minerals or agricultural product, while the place where value is added to all those raw materials or commodities, as it were, is outside of Africa. So we export those commodities, and then we go to those countries where these commodities are transformed to finished products to go and import the finished product back into Africa. That has been the story of Africa for many decades. So how we're going to turn this around, what we're going to do, when we're going to be able to make a dent on this problem depends exactly on what we do, taking the right steps towards getting out of the doldrums that we have found ourselves or that we have put ourselves in.
Okay. So we had a guest just a few minutes ago, and we talked about industrialization, and we talked about power, which is lacking so much in Africa, and that, if care's not taken, is actually what is responsible for the stunted industrialization move in the continent of Africa. Don't you think if the African countries have the audacity to make economic reforms and to establish or coin out the charter or the agreement of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, they have the audacity to do that, and it's the biggest trade area, free trade area across the world because of the number of countries that are committed or that have penned down their signature to it. Why are they turning their eyes away from the core of industrialization, which is power? Can't the AU mandate member states to give emergency attention to energy and power development in their respective countries?
Well, I'm not so sure that AU has that kind of power, but I believe at the level of AU, people could discuss and agree that power is very critical to moving forward in the direction of industrialization. If this is agreed, it may not be something that will catch on with everybody, but at least let the leading economies, let some of the member nations be able to see the role of power in these whole arrangement and pursue power with the level of aggression that will deliver results within as short a period as possible. Every time I remember the journey of a member country like Nigeria, as far as power is concerned, it leaves a very bitter taste in the mouth. For how long has Nigeria pursued the issue of power? We have analyzed the problem. We have determined, we have known that we need power to power industrialization. And there has been a lot of effort in that regard. We can even ignore what has happened before the current republic and say, okay, from 1999, when we returned back to civil rule, we had the very first government was by President Obasanjo, and he recognized the fact that there is no power and that we need to power this country. It went as far as declaring a state of emergency in power. What does state of emergency do? It clears the way for all the clogs that may slow down decision making in that segment for investment purposes. But by the time it was done in 8 years, we were still in darkness. The next president came. The story did not change. I even remember one of the power ministers in that administration who kept promising that he would deliver 6,000 megawatts, he would deliver 6,000 megawatts. And he left. He did not deliver anything close to 6,000 megawatts. So the Yar'Adua administration has power as one of the 7-point agenda. The next government has power as part of the issues they want to solve. As we speak today, we're still a country of over 200 million people struggling with 5,000 megawatts of electricity. Meanwhile, when you look at a smaller country in terms of population, though, not in terms of industrialization, South Africa is a 60 million people country with over 50,000 megawatts of electricity. So if a 60 million people country who have over 50,000 megawatts, and that over 50,000 megawatts is not even enough for South Africa. South Africa in recent years have been struggling with power outages issue. So it's not even enough. So imagine that 50,000 megawatts is not enough for South Africa. Think about what it means that in Nigeria is struggling with 5,000. A lot of time we don't even get to 5,000 anyway. So it shows the huge gap. It shows the inability to bridge this huge gap over so many years. And we must, at this junction, at every country level and at the AU level, be asking, what exactly is the issue in Africa? Why can't we give our people power? Are there forces that are even beyond Africa that would rather keep Africa in darkness? If there is, what is Africa doing to break itself free from whatever that power may be and provide power? The saddest part is that everything it takes to have the power is here in Africa. You want to do renewables, the sun is there in abundance. There is wind. You want to fire your turbines using gas. Nigeria is a gas nation. Tons upon tons of gas are lying there. We still cannot turn the turbine. Countries that do not have petroleum, that are not blessed with gas, are giving their people electricity. The country that is so blessed with gas, like in Nigeria, could not even power its own turbines. So it's a sad reality. And unless we fix things as critical as power, industrialization will take time. Of course, there are other factors, other infrastructure factors, the communication, the transportation, and the rest of it. But power is core to industrialization.
All right, thank you very much, Bolan Olojede. So glad to see you again. So when we talk about made in Africa product, most of it comes from small and medium scale enterprise. So my question is, what specific policy, funding mechanisms, and maybe training programs do you believe is most critical for SMEs to scale up, compete effectively, both locally and regionally?
I think government intervention cannot be outruled, but I must also admit that in many parts of Africa, government intervention is limited because there is so much that is competing for that same resources that we are talking about. So it becomes a matter of 3 elders and 2 chicken laps. How do you share it? So it means that it's not just going to be only government intervention. As a matter of fact, government intervention may not just be about funding. Funding is important, but government needs to support the private sector to also contribute to uplifting the small and medium scale enterprises in this country. There's a novel idea in the past, even in Nigeria, the species idea by the CBN there. And what that idea did way back was to say, look, corporations, I think it was focused on banks then, need to set apart a portion of their profit for investment in SMEs. Of course, the Nigerian factor came into that program and it failed. It failed woefully because what people did was that they were just using the avenue to pass on fund to their friends' businesses, to their wives and girlfriend businesses and all the rest. And everything just went ablaze. We never got much result from it. But the thinking behind that kind of a program is very useful. It is to say, look, these small and medium-scale enterprises are unable to borrow for the most part. When they are able to borrow, they borrow at very expensive rates. This does not help them to grow as they are supposed to grow. So there should be a mechanism, an intervention that gravitates what you call risk capital, an equity type of capital, into that segment. Now, when you gravitate equity type of capital into that segment, the owners of those equities will also now provide certain level of oversight. Governance will improve. They will have access to expertise from these investors. They will have access to fund from this investor. They will also have access to expanded governance from these investors, and that this should help to grow and pull up these SMEs to a higher scale of productivity. Of course, the first experiment failed, but it doesn't, and we know why it failed. It doesn't mean we cannot do it again. You see, let me. I mean, sound controversial in what I'm about to say, but I think we are actually in a season where we have to revisit that kind of a program. A couple of years ago, or last year, we had a situation in which, since 2023, financial services have been posting humongous profits, jumbo profit, I would call it. It is recognized everywhere, including government. But the way government has recognized it is to say, look, I'm going to tax this your super profit. I will ask you for what was this? There was a specific name that they gave to it. But the essence was to say you are making super profit. We have a duty to reallocate this your super profit in an economy. It's redistribution. Therefore, we're going to tax this your super profit. The question is government in the best position to deploy that kind of a fund? Or is it better if that kind of a fund is channeled, or at least a portion of it is channeled to SMEs via a structure like the SMACES that the CBN has implemented in the past? My take is that at least a portion of that kind of a fund should have been channeled into a program like the SMACES, in which the money is passed on as risk capital to small and medium-scale enterprises, who will now benefit from the experience of the investors, the private equity investors, the venture capital investors, who will bring expertise, they will bring money, and they will also come with an expanded governance that will help to grow these businesses onto the kind of scale that will help us create jobs, improve our production. You know, if we are ever going to get out of that stage in which the entire Africa is, represent less than 2% of global manufacturing, we must consider schemes such as this.
Thank you so much, Bola Olojade. Now, most of the industries that employ the largest population of employees in African countries, it's in the informal sector. People who have started businesses, and as the business grow, they extend themselves to having 2, 3, 4, 5 employees who work for them. And at that specific level, these are businesses that are championed by youths in the continent of Africa. About 60% of them are under the age of 25. Most of them are driven toward tech. The MPC have been meeting regularly, consecutively for 3 times now, and they've pegged the MPR at 27.5% as we speak. And that's even on the high side, because paying back 27.5% is quite high. And the access to liquidity, access to funding is it's not quite palatable with the collateral request and all of that. How can we make sure that this informal sector is fed and given the required capital, it's aided even by way of policy for them to continue with what they are doing so that they can really manufacture these products for the local African market, and we don't have to trade among ourselves using the dollar? How can we achieve that? It looks like quite a towering ambition.
Well, you see, there is complexity around why MPR has remained at 27.5. The gentleman at the helm of affairs is doing a great job cleaning up that place, sanitizing it, stabilizing the exchange rate, and all of that stuff. And that rate is not about to go down because of the volume of money that is still in circulation. And the fact that inflation issue is still very fragile. So I perfectly understand why why MPR is still at that level. However, part of my earlier discussion is also in recognition of this fact, in recognition of the fact that these guys cannot survive if they must borrow at those kind of rates. They won't leave. Therefore, they need equity type of money, that doesn't require them to start paying interest. So if somebody comes in and putting equity into your business, of course, is a part owner of that business for as long as that equity is in the business. The way the VC, the venture capitals operate is that they bring this money and they stay in your business over a period of maybe 5 to 7 years, and then they are out. But over that 5 to 7 years, the business is expected to have generated certain multiples. And when they want to go out, they just sell their share and they're out, they leave your business for you. By that time, what you're speaking about how these people are the biggest employers of laborers and all the rest, we will have achieved it because those businesses will have grown multiple times because there's nobody sitting on their neck for interest. The kind of money they receive is not interest. So they receive money, they receive expertise, they receive governance and everything. In fact, by the time those people put this kind of equity money into those businesses, you achieve what you call de-risking. The businesses are said to have been de-risked. So when those businesses go back to the same financial institutions that were lending them money at 35%, they will get better interest rates because of the infusion of equity capital by those new investors that have come into that space. We must be able to help SMEs to grow. Everybody agrees that they are the engine room for creating employment. And we have the opportunities to help them. There are certain changes, for example, that are beginning to happen in the economy as far as corporate performance is concerned. When you look at corporate performance at the end of 2023, when you look at corporate performance in 2024, and then you come into 2025, when you put 2024 beside 2025, you can see that corporations are recovering from the very bloody books of 2023 and first half of 2024. By the second half of 2024, there are certain changes and books are turning green again. If you look at results that have been released for half year 2025, you will see a lot of businesses are beginning to turn the curve. Losses are flipping into profit. But a big question is, these corporations are the large businesses. How is this dovetailing into the smaller businesses? Are they also able to pick the crumbs that will help them to grow? We need to be able to step into that particular space and ensure that whatever is happening at the level of the big boys can also percolate down all the way. And policies that will help this to happen, that's in the hand of government. But one thing I can assure you is the reality that there is money in this economy.
All right, thank you so much. Now, we'll go on a break as we near the end of the program. We'll go on a break, and when we return, we'll ask a few more questions, maybe about 2. Then we'll round up on the program. Thank you so much. Please stay on the line. We'll be back in a moment.
leather industry has a storied history, particularly in the northern parts of the country, where the art of leather farming and crafting has been perfected over centuries. Traditionally, leather was used primarily for functional items like sandals, bags, and saddles, with little emphasis on fashion. However, the narrative has changed drastically in recent years as Nigerian leather has evolved from a utilitarian product to a symbol of luxury and high fashion. Here is a special report by Bayo Olaoye. The turning point for Nigerian leather came as local designers began to recognize its potential beyond traditional uses. They started to experiment with new designs, creating products that appeal to the modern consumer while maintaining the heritage of craftsmanship. The result has been a wave of leather products that are not only functional, but also stylish and desirable on the global stage. One of the key factors driving the revolution is the exceptional quality of Nigerian leather. Known for its durability and unique texture, Nigerian leather, particularly from goats and cattle, has become highly sought after by fashion houses both within and outside Africa. This demand has encouraged local artisans to up their game, focusing on quality control and finishing techniques to meet international standards. Moreover, Nigerian leather products have benefited from the global trend towards sustainable and ethically produced goods. Consumers are increasingly turning away from massively produced items in favor of the handcrafted, sustainable alternatives. Nigerian leather.
Welcome back. Many thanks for joining us on the program. We still have Golan Olojade in online having a conversation with us. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. Welcome back once again.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Golan, I know we're talking about Africa, but let me bring it back home to Nigeria just a little. And the reason why I'm saying that is because one of the reasons why former President Muhammadu Buhari penned his signature to the African Continental Free Trade Area agreement is because he was advised that it's going to be a very, very good platform for Nigerians to proliferate our product, our locally made products across other African countries. But it looks like that is not what is going to happen, because when you talk about the topmost 5 most industrialized countries in Africa, Nigeria is not on the list. South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Eswatini, we are not even on the group. And it looks like we only have the market. Do you think other countries are going to make Nigeria a dumping ground, or you have a different perspective?
I would not use the word dumping ground. Of course, they will sell into our market, and it is good that we should buy from them. They are our African brothers, and we are signatories to the trade agreement. So we should buy from them. But it should now be a push for us to also ask ourselves, so what are we offering the rest of Africa? I know we are doing quite a bit on the creative side of things, the movies, the design and fashion. We're doing quite a bit in that area. But when it comes to industrial products, we are nowhere to be found. Thank God for Mr. Dangote and what he has done in the petroleum refining side of things, and some of the other industrialists who have done a bit in industrial, like the little that we have, people who are played in all those places. But the challenge is that the gap is still very huge. It is an open field. As it is today, we signed a trade agreement for, being able to exchange products. Intra-African. We don't even have a product to offer Africa. So the challenge is back to us to look around us, because we're such a blessed country, from agriculture to solid minerals, to oil and gas, to several other things that we are blessed with, and begin to project ourselves in the direction of a value-adding country, not just a commodities country that delights in selling raw materials, but that can add value and sell within Africa. Now, of course, we should be able to sell abroad. I know that Dangote, for example, is exporting fertilizer outside of the country, even to the United States. We need more of such companies that not only meet the need of Nigeria, the Nigerian market, but can also sell to other African countries and probably even outside of Africa. We are nowhere near it, but the potential is there.
All right, thank you very much, Bola Olojede. Now, if you look at Africa, the population of the youth is massive, and this is an untapped gold mine. But then again, when we talk about manufacturing, it is often seen as a traditional sector. So my question now is this. How can it be made more attractive for young Africans, and also what jobs are being created for them to drive innovation? Secondly, how can African governments and schools better equip young Africans with skills needed, necessary skills needed in a tech-driven manufacturing sector?
We need to showcase there are a few young people that are already doing marvelously well in entrepreneurship, even in manufacturing side of entrepreneurship. We need to be able to showcase them. I don't think the young people are looking in all those directions. Their attention seems to be focused on the creative side of things, which is good. But in reality, either from biology or from what we have seen in the marketplace, not everybody is cut out for the creative. We are not all creatives. That is the reality. So we must encourage people with policies. That is the role of the government. Incentives, as it were, interventions where interventions are necessary. Though my take on government intervention is that it should be less about funding, but more about structure. While the funding matter is better championed by the private sector. So it is for the government to create a structure that the private sector can leverage upon to be able to do more, participate more in the funding. So, but when it comes to fiscal incentives, it is in the hand of government. So government can look into critical areas where you want more people to come into and create those fiscal incentives that will encourage people to come into the space. I'm glad that in recent time I've started seeing the National Orientation Agency coming back with a lot of adverts, though the adverts are not yet focused on every area that we would like them to talk about. I hope they can also gravitate into talking about things like industrialization and the role of the youth in that space. Otherwise, as the current generation moves away or gets old, if there are no new ones to replace them and everybody wants to be only in the creative side, then the case will actually worsen for us as a country. So we must put incentives on the table and be purposeful about driving what we like to see, even from education level, from education side of things. The things you want to promote, you start incentivizing them right from the education level. When people are in secondary school, when they're in those polytechnics and the universities, you start to let them see where you are going. Otherwise, part of our problem is actually unemployability. If a country needs more engineers and it is producing a lot of religious studies graduates, there will be a problem when it comes to employment. That is the reality. So.
All right, thank you, Bola Olojede. Just a quick one. You said you prefer less government intervention. Why do you think this is a better way to go?
Because there's a psychological belief that government money is nobody's money, so let's just spend it anyhow. And we have seen how that has played out in major interventions in this country. A very good example is a noble idea called the Anchor Borrower Scheme. Part of what the Anchor Borrower Scheme was meant to deliver was to pass some money to the ordinary farmers, to these smallholder farmers, through farmer cooperatives and structures such as that. But what happened to that scheme is that today, I am sure that more than 90% of the money that went into that scheme got stuck into that scheme. They never came back. It will start from issues such as people who are not even eligible cornering a substantial amount of the money, and while a lot of people who are eligible will not even get the money. The one that eventually gets the money sees it as, this is my own share of the national cake. They take the money, not considering the fact that it is meant to be recycled. You got this year, when you use the money, you pay back, other people can access the money, or you can also access more money in the following year. But if everybody took the money and refused to pay, it dies out. So there's a mentality about government money, which is why I prefer that government create a structure but allows private sector to champion the intervention, as it were.
Okay, thank you so much. Balau Olojade, a well-respected economist, financial analyst, and public affairs strategist. Thank you so much for your time with us today on Just Africa, for having this robust conversation with us.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day.
Very much welcome. And this is a good place for us to draw the curtain on the program. Olumide,
yes,
it's been a wonderful sale.
It's been, and I like his submission, even though I would have put the hole in what he just said about government intervention. I think the way he explained it, I think it has to do with more of implementation, like the Anchor Borrowers program. I think it balls on implementation, follow through, and even post monitoring. But, well,
the government didn't come through in those aspects.
Yes.
Okay. All right. From me to you, my name is Oyinpriye Krumale. Many thanks for watching. Please do well to follow us on all our social media platforms at SouqNews Television. I am Oyinpriye Krumale once again. Do have yourself a splendid day ahead and see you tomorrow.